And we are reacting on the Deputy President accusing organizers of the Building Bridges Initiative rallies of perpetuating ethnic divisions in the country, and also we'll get a rejoinder also from Right Honorable Raila Odinga momentarily. But let's just continue with the reactions. I think we will now, Dr. Eseli.
Yes, I think, okay, one, I don't agree that we should publicly voice such ethnically divisive languages in our public discourse. However, I think it's a result of this country's neglect of the Maasai question. The Maasai question is very serious in this country. You know, the Maasai, by culture, occupied almost the whole of Rift Valley and beyond, freely, because they didn't believe in individual land ownership and things like that. And they were able to crisscross throughout the Rift Valley and beyond. However, as the colonialists came in, is when the Maasai question started being mishandled. And at independence, we did not actually concentrate on that. If you cross over to Tanzania and see how the Maasai question has been handled, I think it puts to shame how we've handled the Maasai question ourselves. And I think Ole Kina's utterances, although playing to the gallery and populist, is actually a result of how we've mishandled the Maasai question. Because if you look at issues of health, education level, and things like that, we really mishandled that Maasai question. And in the process, the Maasai have started feeling marginalized. It's a fact. We cannot escape from it. It's the same way you had when BBI was down in Mombasa, and people were talking about absentee landlords. Why are we still having absentee landlords at this time, 50-something years since independence? So actually, we have mismanaged our own affairs, and perhaps this is a result of it. I think, okay, while Ole Kina might be wrong the way he said it, but I think he pointed at a potential problem. He pointed at a potential problem, and the quicker we try to sort it out, the better, rather than just vilifying him. However, I have to say this about the BBI organization itself, because I've attended a few of them. Sometimes we don't seem to have a messaging at the BBI. It's totally lost, so that you don't really know anybody is allowed to come and say anything. As Raila says, wanaropoka, wanatapika, wanatoa kila kitu kwa kifua. But you know, sometimes that kind of freedom might not be very good, because even the organizers themselves have a protocol hitch. I mean, the organizing as who speaks when at what time, that protocol is lost, and they play politics with it. So it becomes very uncomfortable for some people. Then you are told that if you want your person to come and get a seat, you should alert us earlier that he's coming, which is neither here nor there, because you would expect that any senior person arriving at a place should be accorded the due respect, not that they should alert you first. So I think, but okay, I agree with the DP, only that I would like to correct him in one point. He said rallies. No, rally in Narok. I think that's what you should have concentrated on, the rally in Narok, not rallies, because they have not spewed ethnic divisions in all the BBI rallies.
Thank you.
So you should have said rally, not rallies.
All right. Yeah. Reactions to the cartoon? Eseli, reactions to the cartoon?
This cartoon here. Somebody wants to stop the reggae? Is it the one holding the cord? But you see, you can't stop the reggae that way. You should usually go for where it's plugged into the power, the socket here, or where it's plugged into the loudspeaker. Then you can stop the reggae. Or otherwise, if you are just holding the wire and you don't have anything to cut it with.
But it seems he wants to unplug it. He wants to yank it from the socket.
But you see,
from the power source.
You see, he has not disconnected. It's still plugged in.
All right.
He should have something to snipe it. Then that might stop it will not stop the reggae, but it will stop the sound.
All right, Dr. Ochiende.
Let me say this in three parts. The first two parts dealing with the Deputy President's speech. In the first part of his speech, he says every Kenyan has a right to live anywhere, to do business anywhere, to vie for political office anywhere, to vote anywhere, and is right. And so I have no problem with that part. So let me come to the second part where he purports to stop the reggae. And he says, if that's what it is, then reggae will stop. And that brings me to the cartoon. You know, what he says, and if people are to be ascribed what their followers say, then what Dr. Boni Khalwale said on his tweet yesterday would be ascribed to the Deputy President. Boni Khalwale says, BBI is an experiment of fools. And the chief fool here would be the President, because it's the President who's gazetted. In other words, what Dr. Khalwale says and what the Deputy President is saying is that they don't think that the President knows what he's doing. They don't think that the President can continue what he's doing, and they believe they can stop it. It's absolute nonsense. And I've said it here. When I said it, I was told I should not advise the Deputy President. The role of the Deputy President is to deputize the President. The moment you come to the conclusion that your beliefs and your version of things is radically opposed to the person you are supposed to deputize, then the honorable thing is to resign. So the only way that gentleman can stop the reggae is to walk out of that room. But I think the reggae will continue. That reggae will not stop. Now, thirdly, about Oledama's comments. First of all, by the time Senator Oledama spoke in Narok, I had not arrived. But I have seen snippets of what he's supposed to have said, and I think it's also reported. And I think that to that extent, they are blown out of proportion. Because what is reported that was said is that he's urging non-Maasais not to vie in Narok because that's Maasai land. Not to be voted for, but not to vie. You know, I think they're blown out of proportion. First, my colleagues in the Tanga team, I think, have now come to being desktop analysts of what happens in the BBI rallies and critiquing them. Now, what happens in BBI rallies is very interesting. I think those BBI rallies are also therapy sessions. There are people who come and say things, some are, you know, absolutely from nowhere, some are just meant to amuse, some, you know, like the Narok BBI, for example. Honorable Manje of Kajiado North stood and said that as far as is concerned, in Kajiado, if the governor is a Maasai, the deputy must be a non-Maasai. I mean, that's his version. In fact, it's those who are there who told him, no, you can't say that. It is there that my brother, Honorable Angela, came and said, this thing of us saying the deputy and the governor should be of alternative gender should not be there. But it's Governor Ngilu and the others who told him off, you know. There are those who came, Atwoli, who said, oh, the deputy president must be arrested immediately, and he stated his reasons. The thing is, what people say there, first, some of it is therapy sessions. Secondly, you cannot ascribe what anybody says at a public rally like that to the organizer of the public rally. There are two ways of dealing with it. One is if you get to attend, then you tell them off. And there are people who are told off for what they said. Two is to make sure that you don't allow that which is said, which you think is wrong, to influence the outcome of the BBI report and the amendment to the Constitution. But my brothers here must realize that if you boycott the kitchen, you cannot determine the recipe. So what they should do is be part of that cooking process and allow those who come for their therapy sessions to do their therapies, and where one is out of line, to be told there and then or subsequently, but not to build this beyond what it is, because the truth is this. All those who are now speaking now, including the Deputy President, are crying crocodile tears. When my brother, Honorable Sudi, was threatening that unless the succession of the president of this country goes the way it was planned, then certain communities in Rift Valley will not have peace, nobody spoke. Where was Aaron Cheruiyot there? Where was Boni Khalwale there? Where was the Deputy President? The narrative of threatening and intimidation on account of certain political leanings ought to stop. But that's no reason to blow any one incident out of proportion.
Thank you. Kimani Matangi.
Thank you. First and foremost, I want to say that I think, and I still believe, that the original motive of the BBI was a good motive. It was a good intention. If the way it started and all the things that were said, the document itself, the document that was released at Bomas, or the 9-point agenda, all those things were noble for this country. Indeed, the entire process, even when we came to BBI 2, the first meetings that were held, the discussions were fair, they were sober, because the way I believe Kenyans interpret this, and when the meeting started going regional, is such that regions can be able to have an opportunity to sit down, work out the agenda, and then at that day discuss that agenda after consultation. That is the way it should have been, and that's the way it is. And to that extent, the BBI is good and has been good. As we've moved on, things have started taking a different turn, Dibal, and we have to say things the way they are. Because we're not going to move away from this country. We're going to be here. And we have to be consistent in the things that we say. Things have started changing, and you remember some of the utterances that were there in Mombasa that you have referred to yourself about absentee landlords and so on. Then selfishness started creeping into the discussions of BBI. And that has now worked itself upwards to when and what you have had in Narok, in Kajiado. And I'll say this, Dibal, in brief, that absolutely, and I would have wanted, I've heard you alluding to some comments you've said by the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga,
yeah.
That he was defending Ledama Olekina in his comments. I would really want to look at the former Prime Minister's eye and hear him say that he condones, that he would support those kind of views, because the Raila that I have known and have listened to, and even what was quoted about him in Kajiado was different. When he stood up, he spoke and he said every Kenyan has a right to live everywhere, to do whatever. So those other comments I would really want to hear. But if he said them before me, I would be telling him that with all due respect, because he would be my advisor in politics, but I believe he would be in contravention of the things he has said himself before and stood for all the time. Because if we allow political neophytes like Ledama Olekina and others who want to cut political space at this time by saying things that they know are not good for this country. If we allow people who just want to score cheap points by gaining popularity because they fear that they're not as popular as in their areas. You can look at the dictionary and look at the meaning of the word neophyte.
Yeah, why would you think he's a neophyte?
I mean, you see, my friend Dibal, amongst most of those guys you are seeing saying so many things that are anti-cohesion in this country, some of those fellows are fellows who have barely been in leadership, political leadership, for 2 years. If you ask me about Ledama Olekina, I will tell you for sure, because he's my friend, he's my colleague. He's been barely in parliament for 2.5 years. He was just elected the other day. I mean, and I don't think, and I would, if I face him, because I'll be seeing him in parliament, I would want him to tell me he's Maasai man number what since creation. I mean, he's human being number what? Right. Since creation. Let me finish. You know why I'm saying this. You see why I'm saying this, Dibal. And let's not try to colorate what it is not. Because there have been millions and hundreds of millions, if not billions, of Kikuyus before me. And there is no way I, as Kimani Wamatangi, can come and think that there are things I'm going to say about the Kikuyu community and their cohesion and living together with other communities that's so departed, that is so earth-shaking that I'm going to make a difference with the way the Kikuyus have lived in this world. The only thing that we would be saying, and that is what our law provides, is that every person, as you have heard said by Raila Odinga, as was said by the Deputy President, as we have in the Act of NCC, is that we have a right as Kenyans to live everywhere, to own property everywhere, to run for office everywhere. And some of those references you've heard made by my colleagues here, That young man you had been referred to as the MCA for Khalwale is my personal friend. I was with him when he was being elected. I campaigned for him, and he's a Luo, and we elected him. I can't tell you the number of young people, even of Maasai descent, in Kikuyu land, all over, that we have supported in business, in positions. And so if we allow the likes of Ledamo Olekina to go waving those kind of cards around and think that they can get away with it because we are heading to 2022, we'll be doing the wrong thing. The politics, the thoughts, the ideas, the utterances of fellows like those ones have no place in modern day Kenya. And they have to be told as much. And lastly, because we sit in the same house with Aaron and Ledama. When I first met Ledama, he told me that he went to college in a very, very renowned institution and university in the United States. I would want to know, I'll be asking him that question this afternoon, whether he was in that institution or he was just in the neighborhood. Because because my friend, I know what you're saying.
I'll try and reach him on phone so that he can actually.
I know what you're saying, and I'll be seeking an opportunity. Indeed, yesterday I wanted to call you Dibal because I had been invited for a discussion in another station, but because I was away, I had wanted to call you and ask you. Can you reach in of my colleagues here so that they can go and sit there, because I thought Ledam was going to be there. but I would have traveled 1,000,000 miles to come and have a conversation with him. Because if what this country has been expecting, that when you elect young people like Aaron Cheriot, like Ledama Olekina, that we're expecting that there is a progressive transformation in politics and thoughts of young people. When you give them that opportunity, you want them to say things that are pro-21st century.
Thank you.
And so I don't think we can entertain it in any way. We have to call it for what it is, garbage.
This question invites me to go on my knees and beg Senator Olekina and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Senator Olekina, I beg you that any time you climb on a national podium, please allow Kenyans to see your brains and not your afro. I kneel before Raila and beg him that please, former Prime Minister, for 5 years, you are the Prime Minister of Kenya, one country under one flag. Just about time this deception ended. How come the former Prime Minister keeps quiet in a public rally in Kitui, a public rally in Mombasa, and a public rally in Narok, when hate speech, ethnic profiling, character assassination, incitement of inter-ethnic conflicts is taking place, and doesn't stand up to either play it down or ask for the people to desist from it? I want to remind him that it is deception, because if you go to Nyanza province, where he comes from, Shakir Shabir is an MP in Kisumu County. Junet Mohammed is an MP in Migori County. In Lamu, Oloi Tip Tip, a Maasai, is a senator in Lamu. If you go to Matungu in Kakamega, David Were, a Luo, was our MP for 15 years. If you go to Ugenya in Raila's backyard, David Ochieng, a Luhya, is an MP, despite Orengo fighting that a Luhya should not be an MP in Ugenya. And finally, but not least, a senator in the former Western Province today is a Luo. And we are not making issues out of it. Raila should stop this deception and know that that old style thinking in who becomes a leader where in Kenya has now been overtaken with time. I want to make a passionate appeal to the President of the Republic of Kenya that this BBI is a very dangerous experiment. I can only compare it to the experiment of resettlement of the Mau squatters. A few years ago, President Kibaki sat with Raila Odinga, and they agreed that that issue of resettlement in the Mau should be addressed. And Raila came out, guns blazing, and went into the Mau. Na siku hiyo hiyo, Mheshimiwa Kibaki akajitafutia shughuli. He was not there. Raila burned his fingers. I can see history is repeating itself. President Uhuru and Raila have agreed on BBI. Uhuru has not appeared in a single BBI rally, and Raila is there. I'll not be surprised if again he burns his fingers. Finally, the arrests that are now arising from BBI conversation. The arrest of the Amrua Dikir MP, Honorable Johanna Ngeno, should have been preceded by the arrest of Olekina. It doesn't make sense that an MP is moving around on a Meet the People tour in his constituency, and the police fears that he might teach them things that will make them realize what BBI is, and then they arrest him. But they fail to arrest Olekina. Olekina, I end this by reminding you, if you must speak for the Maasais, you must read the history of the Maasais. You don't know. If you go to Isumeia, in Butsotso, in Kakamega, we have Maasais there. They have become lawyers. If you go to Bungoma, we have Maasais in Bungoma. Nobody is uncomfortable with them. The fact that a deputy governor, principal assistant of a governor in Narok walked out of a function. The fact that elected MPs in Narok walked out of a function, indeed, confirms what the deputy president was asserting. The deputy president was not saying he's going to pull plaques. He was just telling Kenyans will stop reggae. In fact, Kenyans have already stopped that reggae. It is only being sung, danced through by the sycophants of ODM and nobody else. And that's why in Garissa, we all have footage where there was violence because the people didn't want to hear. It's going to repeat again and again in the forthcoming so-called BBI rallies.
All right, so the BBI rallies are taking a turn for the worse. We want to ask why, and also the organizing committee of this BBI, who really determines what is on the agenda when we go for this particular rally. But we just want to also listen in to what ODM leader Raila Odinga had said, defending Narok Senator Ledama Olekina against a barrage of attacks from politicians allied to Deputy President William Ruto. They've accused the senator of inciting the Maasai against other communities in Narok. And of course, I'll try and reach out to Senator Olekina to have his say as well. He's really gotten a flag here, so he would be it would be fair for him also to just have a rejoinder. But let's listen in.
If there is something that has dented the image of BBI, it's a conversation that divides the country between Kabila hii na Kabila hile.
Why I find it hard to join some of these meetings is because there are people who are using those avenues to insult other people. When somebody stands on a podium and says that Uhuru stole the election and that is why the country is in chaos, I cannot be party to such discussion.
The process that is supposed to be about uniting this country is taking a very clearly partisan approach. Is being built as a campaign team for some people.
Let us have a democratic conversation. Murkomen, tutakuja Eldoret. Na nyinyi mtapata nafasi vile vile kule kuongea mambo yenu. Sema ni yote. Sema ni yote. Hakuna mtu anazuia kusema.
We as the leaders of Mount Kenya, we are not going to take it kindly. Ya kwamba mtu anachukua microphone, anasema watu watarudi kwao. Ati hii shamba alinunua hakununua kwa njia mzuri.
Si kuunga mkono BBI, Ledama Olekina ambie Wakikuyu wangu huko Narok murudi kwenu Murang'a.
Watu wanasema tio Wakenya wanatusiana, wanaweza kabila. Hakuna. This is how we can build a strong foundation for democracy. Manake wewe sasa ile unazuia yeye mtu asiseme ako na hii chuki ndani yake. Wacha kohoe. Tutatafuta dawa yake.
kama kungewezekana tukuwe na summit ya hii BBI, na ningependekeza rais akuwe katika hiyo summit, akiwa chewa hiyo summit, na makamu wake akiwa makamu wa rais, bwana prime minister akuwe hapo, bwana Kalonzo akuwe hapo, Musalia akuwe hapo, so that at least we use that to bring the people together.